You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. This weekend is Super Bowl 56, LVI, the Big Lamed Vase Ima, or as some are required to write it, the big game. Unfortunately, nobody from New York even came close to making the playoffs this year, but we're still excited about the upcoming game, along with the opportunity to talk football photography with two very welcome guests, Callena Williams and Al Bello. Callena, also known as Lena, is the team photographer for the Dallas Cowboys. And prior to that, she shot for the Miami Dolphins and the Carolina Panthers. She's also a graphic designer, and she incorporates her photography into graphics and social media posts, which she creates for her teams. We also welcome photographer Al Bello. Al is a recipient of countless awards and for years was Getty's chief sports photographer for North America. His current title is Special Sports Correspondent at Getty, and there's not much Al has not photographed, including the Summer and Winter Olympics, underwater photography, and even medium format film portraits of athletes. But if you're a football fan, you'll never forget the incredible photo he captured in 2014 of Odell Beckham's fingertip touchdown catch, which is a stunning picture. I was staring at that picture before for like 10 minutes just looking at it. Anyway, welcome, Lena, and welcome, Al. Let's start with a question for both of you. And can you remember when you bought your first ultra-long telephoto lens? And how did that change your game? Did you start taking yourself more, quote-unquote, seriously or feel more comfortable out on the field? Lena, let's start with you.
When I got it, it was just like a wave of relief, I think, to compensate for. I've been renting out lenses, just varying degrees. I think I rented out a 120 to 300, and then like the older version of the 400, just to give me a little bit more room in terms, and so I wouldn't just have to cover a game with just 70 to 200. So when it came, I just felt like it was just a wave of relief that I was able to have that reach finally. And with interning with multiple NFL teams, there's a sense of, you feel proud of yourself. But like, I don't know, when I got the lens, I just felt like, okay, I'm ready now. Like, this is it.
It's your badge of honor.
Right. So, that was my last person, and it's just been a dream to work with. It's so light, and I feel like my pictures just improved so much. It's in terms of just quality and not even just that. I just feel more comfortable getting the action, knowing that I have the ability to do that. And it's just been a dream to work with so far. And I'm very excited for next season.
And which camera are you using with this now?
I'm using a 1DX Mark III.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And did you use teleconverters at all prior to that?
I think I just used the one that was already built into the 2 to 400 before I got the actual 400. I do plan on getting one for the next season, just in the case, for that extra reach. It doesn't ever hurt.
Mm-hmm. I shot with that lens when it first came out. I actually did the review on it for B&H, and I was impressed with that thing. It was really handy. I found that 1.4 converter, there was no real significant loss, if any, of image quality. And it really was an amazing amount of flexibility that you get out of that. Got a lot of pictures. I was just going up and down the west side of Manhattan with it and into the park. And after one day, I was pretty much sold. And again, it's comfortable. It's not too heavy. You could deal with it for a whole day.
And Al, I imagine the first ultra telephoto lens you bought was a while ago. Can you talk about how that felt at the time for you? And was it was it a statement of commitment to your craft at that point, or did you rent lenses for a while?
Yeah, most definitely. I remember my first long lens that I bought. I had been working for a boxing magazine called The Ring Magazine, and I was learning my craft after college in the darkroom. I was their darkroom boy, so I worked there by day, 8 hours a day in the darkroom processing film and just saving my money. And I remember it took about a year or so of just putting the money away, being able to spend it on a 300 is what I could afford at the time. And I think I bought it at B&H. And I remember what was funny was I was so nervous about buying. It was a 300 Canon. Was when they switched over from FD lenses to the EF lenses, and I had the guy at the counter like open the box, and he wouldn't want to do it because it was a whole pain to get it out. But I just wanted to look at it, and I was spending, I think it was about $3,500, something like that. I just remember emptying my bank account and just going, "This is your big. If you're gonna do this, this is for life." So I had a couple of bodies and a medium zoom and a widey to shoot boxing. But I wanted to start doing other things. I needed to get a little closer to the action. So I got a 300 and a 1.4 converter at the time. And I felt good afterwards. And that just led me to just, where I am today. It was the first big step. And I think any photographer goes through that they argue in their head whether is it worth it. But if you really want to be getting into sports photography, you've got to have a long lens. My second purchase was also, I think, from B&H, and that was the 600, and that was quite expensive. But I had moved on to my second job out of college was All Sport, which later got purchased by Getty Images, and All Sport was a sports specialty stock photo agency at the time out in California. And I just remember I needed to step up my game as well because all these photographers had longer lenses. I just deducted that if I had a 3 in a converter, I needed to get a 6, and that would cover me up and down a football field, I thought, or anything else. And I worked that way for quite a while. But those were my first 2 big purchases. And that time I really emptied the bank. I actually went into my credit card for that one. And it took me a long time to pay that off.
And Al, can I ask, and we'll get back to this in a bit, but are you going to this year's Super Bowl?
This year's Super Bowl? No, I'm going to the Olympics in Beijing next week, actually.
Oh, wow. Oh, so that's a huge preparation then.
Yeah. They have the Super Bowl now. It's later, so it's smack in the middle of the Olympics. So there was a time where you could do both, like go from one to the other, but now it's impossible. Right. You got to do one or the other.
Right. Yeah, the reason I put that question about the lenses is not that we need to talk about gear so much, but it really seems that getting that ultra telephoto for a sports photographer and to some degree for a nature photographer is that big step. I mean, it's incredibly expensive usually, and I think that puts a lot of people off. I mean, it's interesting to hear you both say kind of something similar, which is that getting that lens kind of changes your game a little bit. It gives you relief. It makes you feel comfortable out there, and obviously it'll get you some great shots. Let me ask you, Al. I mean, you played football, right? And you work in all kinds of sports, but your football photography is wonderful. Can you talk a little bit about how being an athlete and playing the game helps you on the field?
I think yes. Initially, being able to, I had played the game of football in college and high school. I when it comes to anything, I believe you need to know what you're photographing, and it gives you that advantage, especially team tendencies, down and distance, things like that. Even little things that I picked up playing. I'm going to give you an example. A lot of people watch the quarterback when they're photographing football. I tend to keep an eye on what the linemen are doing, which is a little strange to some, but I watch how they set up and how they initially take off on the ball, and it gives me an idea whether it's going to be a pass or a run, or at least a tendency. Also how they line up in the backfield. Whether there are no backs or some backs in the backfield. Down and distance is a biggie. 3rd and long, more times than not, it's going to be a pass. Most quarterbacks who, whatever hand they throw with, that's going to be most of the time where the teams run the ball, where the quarterback opens faces towards the play. So, there was just things like that I had picked up playing, back then that I applied to my photography in football.
And perhaps I can ask, I mean, in a situation where you're keeping your eyes on the line, but the play's obviously going through the quarterback and it'll be a run or a pass, Are you using, at that moment, are you looking through the viewfinder of a long lens, or are you at that moment with your eyes, away from the camera and then ready to go to the viewfinder?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And it's not all the time, but my eye does pop up over the camera to see how things are setting up in the first snap. And it takes a little practice to be able to get back down
Mm-hmm.
and look through the viewfinder. I don't do it all the time, uh, but there are times where I am on the quarterback. But if I can have a decent view of the line and I could see which way they're whether they're even pressing on their thumbs on their hands a little more than not. That's in my view, this is going to be a run. If they're pulling back up a little bit, chances are they're going to set up the pass block. So it's very quick. I just look real quick and see how they do it, and then go right back to the play. I'm not right every time as I'm photographing, but it helps me. I'm not going to recommend that to everybody because it's a little bit of an acquired skill, but yeah.
You almost have to, because when you're looking through a lens of 3 to 4 600 millimeter focal length, that's like only 2 or 3 degrees angle of view, 4, 5, 6. It's very narrow. And again, if you want to anticipate what's going on, you almost have to be able to somehow peer over for a split second to see what's going on beyond the edges of the frames.
Yeah, it's true. And I do it. Again, I don't know if that's the right recommendation for everybody. So it's what I do. It's what I've done. It's what I'm used to. So my recommendation is what would make you be most comfortable. It could be something you could practice going forward, whoever's listening to this. And it just helps you learn the game, and that goes to every sport. Baseball is a whole different set of tendencies, or hockey or soccer or anything, Olympic sport. There's tendencies for everybody. Tennis, everybody's got a certain way of serving, how they play their backhand, how they play their forehand. How do you know how they celebrate? It's just from watching and practicing. And even if you're watching figure skating, for instance, a tendency, you watch practice, they all do their routines together on the ice before they actually go. So kind of where they're going to jump, how they're going to do their jump.
True.
So it's preparation, and I learned early on, and I'm not the first to say this, but it's called the 6 Ps. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance, so it's something that I live by. Many of my colleagues are the same way. We're kind of brought up together, and continue to pass our what we've learned on to anyone new coming into Getty, and anyone out there. To be honest with you, it's just it's how we help each other. You just kind of sharing experiences and learning from your mistakes.
Teams usually study each other's moves before each game.
Oh, it's studying film like incessantly. Yeah, of course.
But you're studying both teams.
Well, I'm studying lots of teams,
know.
like whoever's playing. You just got to know who's the stars, how do they play, what are they up to. You could just show up and plop down and go, yeah, well, that's football in front of me. Well, that's fine. Things can happen in front of you, but there's a whole bunch of other aspects to the game, backgrounds. Where's the light coming from? How do you want to compose the photo? What lens are you using? So it runs the gamut. What's the weather like? Is it freezing cold? Are you going to be wearing gloves? Is it hot out? Is it raining? So it's endless. It's a very, very busy sport to photograph.
There's one photograph that, when you're talking about dealing with what's so weather-wise and all that, when looking through your work, and I noticed that, and I don't know from the players, so forgive me or anything like it, but it was a tennis player reaching for a swinging, long reach, and it was a long shadow, and it looked like the sun was coming just over the very tip of the stadium from behind.
Yeah, I know that photo. It's Novak Djokovic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, what got me about that is that I know that if I was there, I would be looking about how horrible the shadows are going across the field. In the meantime, you position yourself in a way that was just brilliant, because you caught the shadow, you caught the highlight right over that. The dynamics of the photograph and the geometry of it are just phenomenal.
Thanks.
Me, I'd be there just pissing about how I hate the damn shadow. Go one way or the other. You used it.
Yeah, well, thanks. But you got to take every situation for what it is and how to make it the best way possible. So I always feel like no position you are put into is a bad position. You just do the best you can with what is given to you. And tennis is good that you can move around. And I did move into that position on purpose. You can only plan so much, right? I'm not going to tell Novak now jump, and swing and you long shadow. There's no way you're going to. That's just not happening unless I'm doing a shoot for Nike or whatever, a commercial shoot. But that day, in that position and experience of knowing when the sun was coming over the stadium with the right player, with the right shirt. He had a red shirt on that day, right?
Yes.
So that's going to pop out backlit against the black background. The crowd goes dark. The shadows go long. And Novak is all over the court. So at some point he's going to leap up in the air for a forehand return. And you just got to be patient and hope that everything comes together. And and that's become a lot of my style of photography. A lot of it is misses, and don't get me wrong. You see the successful photographs. I should show you the ones that are, I throw in the garbage. So, or delete these days. It's not like slide film going in the garbage, but it's. I mean, we all do it, right? We all throw away. I don't know, 90% of our work. If you think about it, it's. Yeah, average.
How much will you shoot during a football game? A typical football game?
Especially now with the cameras and the frames per second, you can go berserk if you want. But I've always tended to be selective with my taking pictures. Because I sometimes work with an editor, and I don't want to torture that editor with endless amount of frames. And B is because I've just been trying to discipline myself for years. Over time, and that may be becoming because I have gone through the world of shooting film, and rolls of film are costly and getting them processed, and I might have is ingrained in my head that you get 36 frames, then that's a roll of film, and that costs $10 a roll, and that costs whatever to process, and then it's been in my head to just shoot when you're supposed to, when it feels right. Don't just blast away. And I try to tell the young photographers that, having said all that, you can still go through 1,000 frames in a football game, depending on what is needed. It might be some requests from whoever you're working for. I need number 88, number 55, number 32, all these people standing there waiting to get the ball or dropping back for a pass. So that requires frames. So, it just depends what you're doing. But, any given Sunday, you could photograph a lot of frames for sure.
And will Getty have an editor on site with you guys, or somebody that you're sending photos to, and then they're going to pass them on?
We've been using, especially with COVID, remote editors. So we have them stationed around the country, and we just, we select, tag the images and send the ones that we like to start, from the field, and then they go to the editor with the. I think we use a MiFi on the field if it's working good that day. Worst case, you go back to the room and you just drop your tags into the computer, and it all goes to a central base where the editors, wherever they're sitting, can edit the photos.
Gotcha. And Al, you were speaking earlier about working with other photographers, and can you talk a little bit about the dynamics on the field on a football game? Do you?
Sure.
Do folks kind of jockey for position, and where do you kind of move yourself, or where can you be on a field?
Well, these days with COVID, we are very limited with our positions. So whereas before, you can get 4 or 5 people on the field for a Super Bowl, for instance, I think this time around, at the moment, we're only allowed 1. So it's a much different dynamic if you're one person covering a game as opposed to 4, and you just do the math. There's 4 quadrants of the field, 4 photographers stay in your quadrant. And when I say quadrant, it's from the 30 down to the 0 line. That could be where you are, and the other 4 photographers handle their quadrant also. If you have a 5th photographer, that person could follow the action up and down the field and the quarterback's reaction, things like that. So, each agency has their way of doing things. But if you're a single photographer, it's daunting, running up and down the field, covering game. And I've done it both ways, plenty of times. But yeah, it just depends how many. If there's 2 photographers, you split each side of the field, and you run up and down the field together on your particular side. So.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so it's basically from the 30 down to the goal line, and then behind the end zone is where you have access?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
all around the field. That's correct.
Right.
You don't go, if you're moving past the benches, you move past the benches. Now, I don't know if a team photographer's allowed to stay there. That's not.
We're not allowed to stand behind there anymore, as far as I know, or at least
I
I know
think,
that that's what they told me.
yeah, and I'm imagining that's COVID reasons, but I've seen team photographers go on the benches and things like that when when they needed to. So I have not seen that this season. No.
Capturing emotion in photography is crucial, sports photography particularly. In football, with the distance, with the helmets, and with the speed, is tricky. I mean, how do you kind of handle that? What techniques do you try to do? What do you do? Or what do you use to try to find that facial expression or that moment of emotion?
At least for me, I try and break it down to make it simple, right? What is your background? Is there a bunch of poles and security guards and empty seats as your background? If that's the case, if you have the opportunity to move, then move. Maybe you could shoot from the end zone out, where the players are, where everything goes faded. And that would kind of help your background. If it's a place like Lambeau Field where the seats come way down and the advertising is minimal, it's pretty much football God's country. If it's a place like the Meadowlands, which is my hometown, unfortunately, it's not the most photo conducive place. There's lots of scoreboards, and the seats are high up, and there's just a lot of scattered things around you. And it makes for a very tough background. I find myself shooting from the end zones a lot to try and kill the background, make it cleaner, or at least have football people where they should be. The second thing would be light. Where is my light coming from, right? So if I have the light behind me and it's lower in the day, like, fall day, the sun, if it goes into the players' faces, good for me, because when you got those football helmets on, especially now with the visors and everything, it's tough to see the faces. And the way to battle that is to open up a little bit on your exposure. What you do though is risk overexposing the photo. So it's always a little dance that you play, risking, are you risking overexposing the photo or have the player's face in the dark? So what do? You can move around to the other side of the field and shoot backlit. Now you're backlit and you're definitely underexposed on the player. But if you open up enough where the player's body is exposed correctly, the sun, especially if it's a dark background later in the day, will not be so affected other than glowing behind the player's body, right? The background will remain dark. And now you can have a really nicely lit photo. Now, if you're photographing where it's an overcast day or a night game, that light is pretty much made for you. It's a little easier to photograph. It's even light, and you just go with an exposure and, and go with that. The third thing is, how do you want to compose the photo? Do you want to put the player upright, vertical, tight? Are you looking to get a quarterback dropping back with his line in front of him? So put the quarterback on the left side. Are you thinking for a magazine where they want to drop type in? Are you just reading and reacting with the lens that's around your neck and you got no choice but to pick up the camera and shoot? So, usually I'm working with 3 cameras, 3 different lenses. It's probably, a 600. I've been using the Canon 1-400, sometimes the 70-200, and then a wide angle lens, which is like a 24-105 around my neck. So I've experimented with lots of different lenses, but that's what I went with this year. So, I mean, again, depends on what makes you comfortable. So I've been able to work that way for quite a while.
Interesting. What is crucial to you? Is it the photo that kind of defines the game, perhaps a game-winning catch or whatever it happens to be, or is it the photo that is just the most action-filled, the best composed, the best image? I mean, what are you kind of looking for, and what do you feel you need to do?
I mean, honestly, if you're going to ask me, me being greedy, I would like both. And sometimes it actually works.
Right.
I can give you an example. Where Super Bowl? It was the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl was in Tampa, I think. The Steelers were playing the Cardinals. James Harrison intercepted the quarterback as they were going in for a touchdown before half. They were driving from the 1-yard line, and the quarterback threw the ball. Harrison, a defensive lineman, intercepted the ball and ran it back 99 yards for a touchdown and turned the whole game around. He had the whole team chasing after him the whole length of the field, and I went through all three of my lenses. I was on the opposite end because I had been working in my quadrant at the time. But I also had my background where I wanted it. And James Harrison rumbled down the field through my 600, and then I was able to switch to my 70 to 200. And then he crossed the goal line and leaped in the air, and he had all kinds of players jumping on him, and he dove into the end zone and then fell on his back and was greeted by his teammates with a wide angle lens right in front of me. So that was one time where I actually got really good pictures with all three lenses when I least expected it. And it was the play of the game. And, luckily it ran in a lot of places the next day because the Steelers went on to win the Super Bowl. So that is an example where I had my cake and I ate it and it all worked out really well, but I can't tell you how many times where I got nothing, from a Super Bowl. Nothing came my way. It was just one of those things. But you got to be ready, and if I had my choice between the two, you're going to ask me, I would rather take the pretty picture, the well composed, the one thought out, where action happens in front of it, or a moment where maybe there is no action. It's just beautiful light coming through a stadium, or So yeah, it's a tough one. I would love to combine both. It has happened to me in my career a few times. Luckily. But I intend to enjoy thinking about a photo in my head, putting myself in that position, and they say you make your own luck, and I'm trying to try and make your own luck, and then the play has to happen.
That's awesome.
Honestly.
Can you just briefly describe a little dance you did after you got that 3-camera series of images? I'm just curious to know, at the very least, can you give out the scream or the Yahoo that you gave out after, you finished shooting?
I was just I remember my editor, who was at the time, I think we did have someone on the field, and I looked at him and I went, "This is good." I was like, "Just take all three of my discs," and I was like, I think I got everything, and I was excited. I wasn't yelling. I was just quiet. I felt the same way with the Odell Beckham catch. I remember setting up in the end zone because in Giant Stadium, like I told you, it's not really one of my favorite stadiums to work from the sidelines. It's more an end zone kind of place. And Beckham had been jumping and catching, and I was just like, all right, they're on the 50. It's down a distance long. Manning's been going to him. Maybe, and I said, let me just set up in the corner here where I like it. And, sure enough, he threw the ball. I was able to, get the throw, change lenses. Everything went quiet. He reached out. I shot a sequence of the catch. He rolled over, team jumped on him. Same thing. It was like long lens, medium lens, wide lens. And I looked at the editor and I said, I think, it wasn't yelling. It was more like, I think this is good. That feeling, quickly looked on the back of the camera and I was like, okay, sharp. And I just said, send it, I was like, get on that, and they cropped it all different ways and tight, wide, like everything. So the same thing with the James Harrison rumble down the field, it was just tight, wide, and it was
And did you pass your card to the editor, or is that your Wi-Fi send?
The Super Bowl, luckily, back then we had editor on the field, and we had a line tethered to a computer, and it was different technology then. This might have been 10 years ago. So, but yeah, it's the same idea. Sent the card, back to the editors behind in the trailer in the back in the parking lot where everybody was working. Nowadays, it might be like someone working from home remotely and doing it that way. But it's the same idea. You tag your photo, you talk to the camera. You could say, hey, this is the touchdown catch. I think this is good. Give it a look or crop it a certain way. And it's important to stay in touch with your editor that way, or,
Wonderful.
Al, if people want to catch up on your work, where can they go to?
I have a website. It's www.albello.com. I'm on Instagram, albello55, post there occasionally. And I work for Getty Images. So I don't know, take a look at Getty every now and then. We're out there.
And all of these links will be on our show page, so be easy to catch up to. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Terrific talking to you. Great work. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. I really appreciate it, and good luck, everybody.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, questions for Callena Williams. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back, and we're back with Lena Williams. And Lena's work is a little bit different from Al Bello's in that she's actually a team photographer. She works for the team, not for a news agency or anything like that. So she has a little bit of a different point of view about that. And that's what I'm curious about. How do you approach the game differently than Al would approach it?
I would say you're kind of shooting specifically for the team, and everything that you do is in the best interest of the team that you are shooting for. So mainly my priority right now is the social team and our website, but mainly the social team. And so I know with that, I've learned very quickly there are certain images that the fans just always like. It's always helmet off storytelling, face, emotions, not necessarily always the action. And then, of course, they kind of gravitate more towards the marquee players that are on the team. I know that's something that I really focus on a little bit more, just trying to get that, in a way, kind of behind the scenes look. So, of course, when it goes on a social media page, is the action, the touchdown, what happened. And then there's also this moment of maybe you get the reaction of the quarterback after he threw the ball, or maybe if it's a bad play, you'll get the reaction of him being disappointed and angry that, he maybe threw an interception or maybe fumbled. And so I just like to think of it as a way as me giving in almost a viewpoint with my eyes, how I see the game, and giving them that access.
So your goal is really to get the most out of your team. Do you find that you maybe put a little bit less effort into catching, good images of the opposing teams, or do you just kind of try to get the best you can no matter what's going on?
There are times where there's I know a really good play is going to happen, especially if we play a team like the Cardinals. I know you have like Kyler Murray and, DeAndre Hopkins didn't play that game, but you just have those players where, no matter what, there's always going to be that really good play that you're going to want to capture. And there are times where I do kind of capture just like those moments, just as like a little personal thing, like a personal goal, like, okay, I can get that. But most of the time I do try to just put all the focus onto our team and getting those moments so our team can have as much as their exposure, so it can be used in different places. I know and most people just think of social and the team, and that's the priority. But the reality is these pictures get used so much internally, whether it be for newsletters, random stuff like the insurance website that goes through the company. They'll have like pictures, maybe even a slideshow or something. It's just, so you want to make sure that you're getting everything. And, as much as I would love to just get, I don't know, like any random marquee player on the other team making a great play, just to say that I have that in my arsenal, I do like focus on the big plays that our team makes.
And Lena, you work for the Cowboys, and they're one of the biggest organizations in all of sports, really. How big is their social media team, and how much of a focus is that of marketing right now for them? And following up on that, who is your boss, quote unquote? Who is your editor, the one that's saying, hey, this is what we need for today, and who are you giving photos to?
So I'm mostly giving photos to the social media manager who posts all the content and runs the page. We kind of all sit together and brainstorm. Well, they brainstorm and kind of give me like a list of the standards stuff to get. And then, of course, I kind of take my own liberties and get a little creative and do make it look pretty and whatnot. But mostly it's going straight to them. I just kind of send them wirelessly all the pictures that I think will fit the page. Of course, the action, and of course the the non-action, and then they kind of sift through it and pick, post what they think works, and that's just kind of how we work.
Right. And is it in real time? I mean, is everything going right from camera to them, or do you edit yourself at a certain point in the game or after the
Yes,
game?
it's real time. So the moment a play happens, I get right up and find an Ethernet port. I have them all set up around the stadium, and I'm just sending in whatever play happened, whether it just be something simple so they can use it for, the first down or the first half and a first quarter, second quarter graphics to, update the score,
Right.
or whether it just be a photo to update the play. Everything is in real time.
Yeah. And these Ethernet ports, are they just for the team photographers and the team usage, or is this available for, media as well?
It's available for anybody who can use it. I mean, I'm not going to be watching them and making sure only our people are using it, but mostly it's usually me and the opposing team that uses it the most, and then of course the NFL.
Interesting. And do you have more access on the field than, let's say, Al might, or a typical news photographer? I mean, can you get into the benches and try to get let's say a real tight portrait or a shot of somebody after a game, after they came to the bench after a big play or something like that?
I know from what I've seen just from my first season, most of the photographers that aren't NFL or NFL club, but you just stay behind the yellow line at all times of the game, depending on what color vest they have on. Of course, there are some that are allowed to go on the field during post game, but most of the time it's really just team or club media. I know I'm able to go on the bench or near that bench area when they're doing the national anthem specifically. I'm weaving in through and through a player, just trying to get facial expressions, just kind of get them kind of preparing for the game. I go into the tunnel area. A lot of people aren't allowed there. I think it's just the NFL staff and us that is allowed to go to the tunnel area right before they come out. This season, I don't think, because of COVID, they weren't allowing people into the locker rooms, where I know photographers will be able to go into the locker room. So I didn't really get that access, but there was some areas that I was able to have that other photographers weren't able to go.
And you were saying, or you've been saying that this is your first season with the Cowboys. Can you kind of trace for us a little bit, how you got this job? And I know you worked for other teams, and you were an intern with the Dolphins. But did it start in college? Were you were working for your college team or your college newspaper, and then it just went from there? Were you always interested in sports photography, and how did this kind of develop?
So I started photography just as a general thing in high school, and I was a part of the yearbook. But in high school, I was a part of the yearbook as a writer. I knew when I got to college, I wanted to continue being a part of the yearbook, but I wanted to switch over to photography. And so I think I had an early semester where they allowed incoming freshmen to come during the summer. And so I went, and then when I was there, I just took pictures of everything I could find, kind of to build a portfolio, because at the time I didn't really have anything. I had just gotten a digital camera recently, because in high school we were strictly film, actually. So when I just took pictures of the clock tower that we had, just random people walking by, just to flowers, just anything that I could take a picture of, just to build something. And I guess they really liked it, and they brought me on. And then literally my first assignment was to cover the homecoming football game. It was my very first football game. I'd never considered, sports photography a thing. I thought it was just, portrait, landscape, nature, and then that was it.
Sure.
Were you into football at all at that point, or sports in general?
Oh yes, I loved football. I loved watching it.
Oh, okay, all right. So this was a treat. Okay, you fell into a treat, basically. This is great.
So for some reason, it just never occurred to me that I could do that. And so when they assigned me to the game, and I literally, when I say I've never left the field since, that was 2016. I've never missed a home game in college. I've barely missed any of the away games. I think I missed one away game since I've been there. After my senior year, of course, it was the COVID that we had to all go home early. And then, it was unexpected, but I had gotten a message from the Panthers photographer at the time, who's Brandon Todd. He, saw me on a website where it was just a database of Black photographers, and he saw my work and he saw what I did for my university. And he invited me to be a freelance photographer for the season during COVID, which, I mean, I could have been more happy. I thought, because at that time I hadn't picked up a camera since I left, which was in March. He reached out to me in August. I hadn't had touched the camera, took in a picture. I mean, and it was just awful. I felt like I was just missing out on so much stuff, and but I felt like so closed off because I was in the house all the time. So being able to go out and still do what I love in the middle of the season when people just weren't that lucky. So I just felt extremely blessed to be able to do that.
And was that when you went, then you were shooting in empty stadiums? I mean, the games were being played without crowds. Is that true or no?
The very first game I shot with them was an empty stadium, and I think they're starting allowing percentage of fans after that. But I was shooting strictly from the stands, so that was a little bit of a change. But I mean, to be honest, I kind of liked it. Found it a little bit more easier to kind of track the ball from that viewpoint.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I didn't miss any big shots or anything. And then of course people just love that kind of aerial view of things. So
what's nice about shooting from the stands is that your backgrounds are a lot cleaner. The uniform, whereas you're shooting from ground level, you have the stands. You got a lot of distracting things that could make or break a photograph. So you do have it's a cleaner, more graphic image from above. Definitely, I think.
Yeah. I think, with a Bank of America Stadium, I think the background in general is just kind of clean. I know they have the city, almost the city skyline in the background. And I mean, you really can never go wrong with that. And then of course, it's just an open stadium. So you have the blue sky. And so I always kind of gravitated more towards just natural lighting and all that kind of stuff. But from the stands, it was just almost like a different world up there. So
yeah,
I'm a little bit sad that we don't shoot from the stands anymore, but I definitely enjoy it a little bit more down on the field.
So I'm just curious about since you became the team photographer, do you find that you're having a lot of people coming out of the woodwork suddenly as your best friend? Of course, you can get us tickets, can't you? No,
yeah. I severely underestimated how much people love the Dallas Cowboys. I will admit.
And how much they really thought of you. They just haven't had a chance to pick up a phone lately. That's all.
No. Yeah. So, I mean, I had a bunch of people congratulating me, of course, when I got the job, and then, of course, on the home side, I didn't get a lot of people asking me for things, but the moment I moved here, and of course, when you're trying to get your basics, your apartment, your car, you kind of have to tell them where you work and how much you're making and that kind of stuff. And it was just, a switch in attitude the moment they knew like who you worked for, and I was just like, oh wow. But I have been kind of holding back where I say I work, or kind of picking and choosing where I reveal that sort of information, just to kind of really avoid maybe that awkward conversation of people thinking that, okay, well, you're here, you're nice, will you be able to do this for me? So yeah, I definitely do get a lot of people asking for favors, free stuff. Can I buy them this? Can I get autographs?
It's kind of the same with us at B&H, right? I mean, as soon as
yeah.
No, but maybe following up on Alan's question, I mean, do some of the players interact with you? Do they know what you're up to, and they may give you a look, or they may give you, a little
did the
extra
players
celebration?
Play to you? That's a good question.
I believe, the way I got here was a little bit weird. I got here, I think, right in the middle of training camp. Mm-hmm. So I think the last person who was here, he left before training camp. So there was a little bit of a break where I guess we have a long-term freelancer that's been there for like 30 something years. So he was kind of like the default. So it was, I guess they went from a switch to, and he's on the older side. So they had like a switch from a younger looking guy to an older guy. And then there's a complete switch up and to me, 24-year-old girl just randomly showed up out of nowhere with a camera in her face. So it was a little awkward in the beginning. I think if I had came in maybe like towards media day, there would have been a little bit more comfortable, for lack of a better term, around me. But I think once we got past maybe the Chargers game, they got a little bit, or maybe like, I think it was like right after the Giants game, that's where most players started and realized, okay, this is our girl. She's here to stay. This is who she is. And then it didn't take long for them to reach out to want pictures. I mean, I pretty much predicted that almost immediately. But overall, they're all very nice guys, very nice people, very respectful. I feel like there is a little bit more emphasis on their respect just because that I am a woman. But I've had them reach out for pictures. When they see me there, they get a little more comfortable. They wave, they hold up a peace sign, they smile. And then, sometimes they even give me a little bit of direction. Hey, do you mind getting in the back of my shirt? Do you mind getting it from this angle? And I'm like, okay, we get a little bit more comfortable now. I do know, what game was it? I think it was the Saints game where I think the defense got a play. They stripped the ball from the quarterback, and I was completely the only person on that side of the field. It was literally no other photographer. They were all on the opposite side of the field. I guess they were expecting a touchdown. But I mean, they ran just directly towards me, which usually sometimes it doesn't really work out that way. When they go into the end zone and they post after the turnover. They ran directly towards me, and it kind of warmed my heart a little bit, just like, of course I was the only person down there, and they probably just wanted a picture, but still, it was a little bit of a warmth in my heart that, they knew that was the goal, or they didn't just go straight to the fans that were right behind me. So I think they kind of warmed up to me a little bit, and then I think, of course, once I get through an actual full season, we kind of media day, draft day, OTAs, and that kind of stuff, they'll be like just way more comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, the Cowboys were eliminated from the playoffs. I know there was high hopes this year for them to go all the way.
Yeah.
But how does that affect your job? I mean, do you continue working in the off season? I imagine you were hoping, for another month of football and perhaps going to the Super Bowl, which would have been incredible. But do you have to wrap things up now and head home, or do you stay and work throughout the year?
No, this is the full-time job. We work straight through. Most photographers, I think this is across the league, that this is like their vacation time. Most people take their vacation and go somewhere like Mexico or out of the country where there's no Wi-Fi, so they don't really have to be bothered.
No football, no American football anyway.
But I mean, there's still plenty of stuff, especially with the Dallas Cowboys. They have so many things that they do outside of the football realm. They have youth camps. I think now I just got, requested to do, I think, a flag football that's happening at an AT&T Stadium. So, I mean, there's never really off season for me. And then, of course, my official title with the Dallas Cowboys is team photographer / graphic designer. So the off season is kind of where the graphic designer part of the job kind of starts. I help build stuff for the look that we're going for this next season. I help out our social media graphic designer, kind of offset some of the work that she has to do. And then, of course, I'm still doing my job on the photography side of things. And then it's also general organization, just making sure all the pictures are keyworded the right way, make sure they can be found for anybody who needs to use them, they're organized right. Just mainly busy work. Basically, is what it is. That's in the off season.
But it also it breaks up the rhythm, though. I think that's kind of good, because if you're just nailing at it, because again, during season you're working. It's 7 days a week, no matter where you have to be. You got to be there. So it throttles back, and it gives you just something else to channel your energies into. It gives you a chance to charge up your batteries for the next season, in a sense.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
And you traveled to the away games as well, correct?
Yes. I think the only away game that I didn't go to was Philadelphia, the very last Philadelphia game. They kind of took it as like, well, we'll give you a little bit of a break, and then we'll send our freelancers, since it was, I guess, for lack of a better term, a throwaway game, even though they played the starters.
Right. And is home base the Cowboy facility? Is that where your office is, and that's where you report to every day?
Yes, the headquarters in Frisco. That's where I work out of mainly. And then, of course, the stadium just on Sundays and whatnot.
And we talked about this at the beginning a little bit about gear and whatnot, and as we discussed, it's pretty exciting when you get those first big lenses, and it kind of changes your game. But can you talk about the cameras that you use and the lenses that you bring when you're on the field, and I actually wanted to ask a bit about the budgeting. I mean, do the Cowboys provide a budget for you to buy cameras and lenses, or is that all on you?
Um, they do provide a budget. I didn't outright buy all the gear that I have this season. They did purchase that for me.
Okay.
Um, as far as gear, I just kind of kept it simple just for the season, just because it was so short notice. I think we bought the gear maybe right in the preseason, like right after preseason. So we didn't really have a lot of time to just kind of vet like all the things that I felt that was necessary for the game. So of course, I said before we just got the 400, and then you actually have two 1DX Mark threes and a 1DX Mark two. We have a 70 to 200, 85 1.4, and a 16 to 35 2.8, and that's on the Canon side. When I first got there, it was just a little bit of Nikon gear that was left by the past photographer, and the Nikon gear that he left was, I think, two D4 Nikon D4Ss and a 200 to 400, a 16 millimeter fisheye lens, which was very interesting, and a 100 1.4 lens. And I kind of switched between both because I really like the 100 1.4. I like that it gives me that reach, but then it also gives me that that aperture. And some of my favorite shots to get is just extreme close-ups. I think those are the most emotional, and so especially during the national anthem, I'll just get like right up under them and take pictures of maybe just like their eyes when their eyes are closed, or sometimes when they're just super focused, and just get everything out of focus except for their vision. I think that's one of my favorite photos to get. And also just like getting super, super close details. I think that was something I learned when I was at the Dolphins. Just their hand in the grass, or maybe their hand as they're tackling another player, just not necessarily getting the face or even getting like a full body. Some people may think it's too close, it's all kind of subjective, but I just like getting little puzzle pieces that kind of tell the whole story. And that's kind of why I gravitated towards the 100. But yeah, that's usually that's the gear that I use every game day. It doesn't really switch much. Next season, I am definitely going to look into more renting different lenses, experimenting, especially on the mirrorless side, since that's becoming a big thing.
Are you putting on your graphic designer hat at times when you're a photographer, thinking about, okay, this detail, like you said, the pieces of the puzzle will work really well as part of a poster or part of an advertisement, or is it really just about shooting as much as you can and then looking at that stuff later?
Definitely when I'm doing like pregame, in uniform, out of uniform, I'm definitely thinking about how this could be incorporated into a graphic. As far as action, I kind of do just kind of go with the flow of the game. I don't really try to force anything unless it's something like the way they were talking about lighting. I do try to kind of plan an image. I think just as recently there was a little bit of a lighting issue with the 49ers game, but I mean, I loved it. It was, of course, I was blinded, but I mean, I think I think the pictures made it worth it. But that's usually a time where I kind of plan out something. But as far as action goes, I really am a go with the flow type of girl. Just kind of let it come towards me and let the cards fall as they may. But but I think with celebrating is something I definitely try to capture a lot, because I know those are the type of photos that usually go into graphics. Everybody loves a happy moment. Everybody loves a smile, and just that emotion. Those are kind of the go-to images we never were thinking. Also, something that was kind of a little bit unexpected, I think it was our Thanksgiving graphic, and our designer wanted to do something where they were it was a back view of them sitting on a couch watching an old Thanksgiving game. And so they just needed a bunch of pictures of the backup players, and they were not, they had a hard time finding stuff until, they got to my I guess, arsenal of the photos that I've taken that season. And there was just tons of photos of the back of their names, because I just love seeing nameplates. I think they're just very clean. And,
Right.
That angle is more like a documentary style angle where they're getting it from behind and just seeing the scene behind them. So it's just kind of little moments like that.
Right. No, that's great. Maybe as a wrap up question, Callena, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, you're relatively new to this, at least with boys, and it's it's a wonderful job. It's an incredible job. I kind of have a two-part question. The first would be any thoughts or any advice you may have for other younger photographers who may want to, follow this lead and what they should do and how they should kind of maybe, get their work out there and do what they need to do to get these kind of jobs. And then following up on that, what do you look forward to next season? I mean, what is it about, the next year that gets you excited and what you'd like to do and maybe, improve your photography and bring more to the, to your work?
Well, addressing the first question, I would say to younger photographers, never compare your journey with others. That was something I really struggled with, especially outside of sitting at home during the pandemic. And so often I was sitting down on social media and looking at all these other people who were getting jobs and starting new positions, and I just felt like I was so behind. And so losing out on time, like I'm a very impatient person a little bit. So it was just, I was always comparing myself and asking, well, I have this experience with 2 NFL teams at this point right now. Why am I not getting the same opportunities as this person or this person? And I would say that it really kind of messed up a mindset almost where you felt like it's what they call imposter syndrome. And I went through that a lot before I got this job. And even still now, when I have this job, I still feel like I'm not supposed to be here. I feel like I just got here by pure luck, and I'm not really as experienced or as good as I would like to think that I am. And it's something that I'm still kind of dealing with, even recently, even with having a successful season, especially with it being my very first season and being in this type of prominent role with such a prominent team.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming in the middle of the season, I mean, I moved to Dallas. I got the job July 1st. I was in Dallas by the 15th, and I started the job by the 21st. And so I never really had a break or time to settle down and really think about where I am. And still, with all that, I was able to have a successful season and provide a lot for the team and help them out as they were trying to transition on to the new season. So I would just say, just never compare yourself with others. Talk to the people that support you. They are there. They really support you. They love you. And I promise, like I always thought, like, I'll talk to them and they're just telling me this because they're my friends, but they really believe in you and they really love you. So never take advantage of that and make sure that you keep that support system around you.
So looking forward to next year, what is it what steps would you like to take?
I'm definitely looking forward to just being there, like, constantly. Like when I got there during training camp, I didn't even go. I don't think I even went to the preseason game. So it was just, I feel like it was a lot of lost time that I was having with getting that relationship with the players and making them more comfortable around me. And I'm really looking forward to kind of growing that and having them feel like that they can come up to me and ask me to get this type of a shot if they want it, or maybe even ask me about the different types of shots that I get. And then I'm also just excited to play all the teams that I've been watching as a kid. It was a dream playing, watching the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys play together. I grew up in Charlotte. I'm from Charlotte. And I grew up a Panthers fan, and just watching that happen and watching me finally being able to capture the team as a team photographer in this role, it was so fulfilling.
Callena Williams, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning a little bit about your journey. If listeners would like to catch up with some of your work, where can they go to?
Well, first and foremost, they can definitely go to the Dallas Cowboys website page. I have a gallery that I upload, or that is uploaded by our webmaster. It's called the Best Of series. And so I just upload all the favorite photos, all the photos that I think that did make the social media page that I think deserve to be seen here. And then also the Dallas Cowboys social media sites, of course, the main page. And then there's also a Dallas Cowboys United site, which is kind of like a fan page, but also a photography page. It's kind of the hub where the pictures that didn't get posted on social that I also feel that I really loved, they also go on that page, and just little photos that I think are really cool, maybe super close-ups that maybe the general fan won't care about. Photography fans also kind of follow that page and they see that kind of stuff. So, and then my social media pages are Callena MW Photo, both Instagram and Twitter. And then my website is also Callena MW Photo.
And as always, all of these links will be on our show notes page, so listeners can go right there and click on them and take in all of your work. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
It was a pleasure being here.
Pleasure. Thank you. If you are not yet a subscriber to our show, all you have to do is head on over to wherever you snag your favorite podcast and sign up. It's easy peasy and it's free. And you can always find this on the B&H Explorer website and on the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group page. My name is Alan Weitz, and on behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, thank you so much for tuning in today.